Hello and welcome to Mr. Clark After Dark, everyone. My name is Lucas Clark and I am a certified educator with Alberta Education and the Alberta Teachers Association. All conversations and interactions exchanged is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. In no way does the content discussed intend to be in violation of the ATA Code of Conduct or meant to target any individual student, teacher, or to belittle or demean the profession in any way. If you have something that you would like me to discuss or have a story of your own to share, please reach out at lucasrdclark97@gmail.com. You can also send a direct message to me on Instagram at Mr. Clark After Dark. Hope you enjoy the show, and please do not forget to subscribe. And now, on to the show. Hope you all enjoy. Hello and welcome back for episode number 2 with the one and only Conrad Drover. Again, just reiterating here that he was dealing with a bout of laryngitis during our episode, so just please be cognizant of that. Conrad is currently teaching in Southern Alberta and in his 5th year in the profession. On part 2 of the podcast here, Drover and I discuss his development as an athlete in track and field, both as a university student and as a teacher. We discuss how it helps his self-esteem as he initially started track in the junior high, breaking his fibula trying to get ice cream, calm panicking, growing as an athlete and making sure to not peak in high school, the fall from grace feeling after finishing his USports career in track and field with the University of Manitoba Bisons, trying to stay in shape when no longer in competition mode, quote unquote, knowing the recipe and just needing to cook, as well as getting back into racing more recently and then balancing athletics with teaching and much more. Thank you guys all for tuning in and hope you enjoy the show.
That's what makes me sleep at night is I can do that, right? Yeah. So like, I'm not a chemist. I was never a professional chemist, right? Nothing like Wiccans is way smarter than I would be, right? But I think my value comes from my life experience.
Okay. And so why track and field? When does it go from being like a sport to a passion? And I guess why?
Why track and field? Because I suck at every other sport.
I'm just going to run as hard as I can.
So
hopefully I get better.
I think.
Were you like decent at it like to start? Was it kind of like initially you were kind of quick? Like,
well, like I was always an active kid. And I think it comes from movie making. Because in Winnipeg,
action films. In
Winnipeg, the night happens immediately in wintertime. It's like sunsets at like 5:30. Yeah. Like really early. So when we would get out of school, I would have to haul ass home. Like I would like literally run home. And I couldn't run all the way because it was like 2 kilometers or something. Yeah. But I would go street light, then Wall Street light. Or if like if you don't run to this car, then everyone hates you or whatever. If you don't make it, like stupid things happen.
Channeling the imposter syndrome for good.
Well, it's like you just, whatever you have to say to yourself, get to that car.
Yeah.
Right. Get to that car. Yeah. And so I had like a raw form of interval training, I think.
Yeah. Well, when I would run with you, it was always 45 seconds. Like you can't even microwave a bag of popcorn in 45 seconds. You always have like these little kind of mind tricks to like maintain your momentum.
I was like, what could you do in 45 seconds? Literally nothing.
Literally nothing.
Right. Yeah. So, that's what I did. And then we had a junior high track meet. It was like a school meet. And I won everything from like the 400 to the 3K.
Okay.
Mind you, like the competition.
You saw some early success. Like you're starting to see like, okay, of all these kids, I'm actually doing something.
And a teacher, her name's Mrs. Tate now. She remarried or something like that. She's like, well, you should like do this. Like you should join a club. So this was grade 7. And then I went to like the spring track meet.
Also like in the Mr. G time though.
Yeah.
Like you're figuring out kind of what your like reason is for doing the things that like you now I realize that you don't like about yourself, that you're doing these things, and then but now you're kind of finding a lane too. Like you're kind of changing your identity in 2 different ways.
Yeah, like I don't have to push this kid down to tell people who I am. I can do something else. Yeah. I got like first and second at like the division meet or something for elementary. For the 800 and the 1500. I don't know which one was which. Yeah. But I started joining a club that summer. And by spring of grade 8, it was complete dominance. Like I was half a lap ahead of people in the 800. And it was not because I was particularly good, but everyone in my division just didn't train. And then I made friends in track. I ran with people faster than me all the time.
Yep.
Like to this day, I am the runt of my training group, right?
Which is
like
which is insane because you run about 5 minutes faster per mile than I do.
You should see the guys that like. So I was going to run that half marathon this weekend. My best time still would have been 4 minutes slower than them. Like if I projected to run my 1 hour and 12-minute half marathon, the slowest guy ran 1:08, right, out of our team. But
that's so crazy.
So in grade 8, I got pretty good. Went to Manitoba Summer Games, broke my fibula. Because I was trying to get ice cream and I jumped over a ditch and broke my fibula.
See, pray no jumping over ditches can be dangerous.
The day before the Manitoba Summer Games race, I did that. So it took me a year to get back to it. Wow. I missed every
crucial year too.
I missed every national team, every provincial team, like for Legion Nationals and Canada Summer Games, Western Canada Summer Games. I missed every team spot by one position. You have to get up 2. I got 3rd every single time. So I didn't have like any real big success in track my entire high school career. But my coach, Scott Radley, he was very long-term athlete development. So while other people were running miles, like miles like I'm running now, he would make us do 250-meter accelerations, weights, not even heavy weights, just form. Yep. He'd make us do 50s, like just like all the stuff that you're like, I'm undertrained right now. I go faster. He's like, wait. Then when it came to university, after a year of like getting used to the program, people started getting injured, and I just skyrocketed. I PB'd by like I went into university running a 159.9 800. Okay. And then I went out running a 153. Like, and that's substantial for me, right?
Isn't the record like 145 or something?
140. It's insane.
Okay.
But and then that got me on to go to nationals 3 out of those 5 years. Mm-hmm. I was always a member of the 4x800, which is just an absolute wild event. Like it is just controlled chaos and calm panicking. Like that's all it is.
And what?
Calm panicking. Right? That's all it is. Like, and like people like, nationals, like people have their shirts off in lane 6, like spinning them. Yeah. Like it's just like wild. Yeah. It's like a rave. It's insane. And like, so I got to be a part of that and, grow as an athlete because of the patience I had forced on me in high school.
Like your coach almost purposely made sure you didn't peak in high school.
Oh, exactly.
Like it's kind of
right. Yeah. And like I think it worked. So where were we?
Just going into, I guess, like, where's the passion come from? Yeah. You have your coach that kind of helps you like not get hurt going into uni, beating a personal best in your 800.
Got into university, got like a couple thousand, like scholars, like paid a couple classes. Yeah. It was nice. And then I trained with my university coach, Claude, and he's like Claude, like he's like a father figure. He's really cool.
And so, are you doing education this whole time? Like your degree is education?
So it's like I'm in physics. Right. Yeah. So really, I took University 1, which is like general studies. Yeah. And then you can use those credits towards any degree, right? Okay. Because I didn't have good enough grades to auto go into the faculty.
Okay. Yeah.
But so 5 years of the USports circuit, man, best time ever, man. It was like, you feel like, especially after like your 3rd year, you're just like a rock star. Yeah. Right. You're in the media for like things and like, you're like the vet of the team and you get to travel on planes everywhere. It was fun. It was awesome. And then graduated from phys ed, kinesiology, faculty of kinesiology. And then it's a phys ed degree. Olivia likes to tell me 'cause she actually has a real kinesiology degree. And then you only get 5 years. I took 5 years to do my 3-year degree. That gave me enough time to do the 3-hour weights, you know, every second day and train twice a day and all that stuff. But I think a big thing about like middle distance training you can't fake it. It will, if you're there for show, you get figured out really quick. But I think like that head down, work hard stuff that I learned from Mr. G and like all the coaches around me, right? Like again, like my lifting coach was the Team Canada's head coach for 2012 Olympic Games. So like I surrounded myself by all these crazy good, knowledgeable people. Like when we first got into our Olympic lifting, I was like, how do we do this perfect? Like I wanted to figure out how to do it. Amazing. And I did. And it was all because, and this is almost why I got into kinesiology, like the science part of phys ed.
Would you say to me outside the tendinopathy?
No, Dr. Tendinopathy is my injury right now. But,
I learned a new word today. I don't know what it means, but I heard the word.
I got really good at biology and exercise physiology and anatomy because I wanted to be a better athlete. Like I figured it out. Well, it's like
research is me search. Like you're trying to figure it out.
You're buffering some. Like how can I optimize lactic acid?
Do you know what it was like to follow this guy as the cross country coach? Like, guys, just keep running. You're doing great. Cross country representative, I should say.
Hey man, you just gotta be a spot for the kids. And then after the 5 years happened, you lose eligibility, right? Because you only get 5 years. I spent 2 years as an alumni.
So you're still running with the group?
So you run with the club, but you'll lose all your...
What is it like? Is it kind of like, is it like a fall from grace? Like what does that feel like to kind of finish your...
In all honesty, I feel like I got cheated a bit because at the time I graduated, which is a couple of years before my main friend group did, most people, like they finished their 5 years and they're off, right? Some people train for another year, right? But not too competitively. And I have that all-in mentality, right? Like if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. So I felt like, I don't know, like I didn't get really, like I lost my free massage, my free ice, like all the facilities, right? And then education had the attendance policy, so I couldn't miss classes.
Really? So I didn't. There was none of anything I took, but
wild. It was just harder, and like I got a little bit injured.
You think you got injured because you weren't doing as much because you're not as like in that routine? I guess you're kind of missing your physio and that kind of stuff
like
too.
That, and like education was a bit more stressful just because of the amount, not the work itself, but the amount of work. And just like the expectation that everyone thought you were done. Like, just stop already, man. Like, you know.
Okay, were you kind of getting discouraged by people around you or?
Pissed off. Like, because like I was like, I still have so much to do, right? Like, I was 25 at the time. And I'm like, this can't be it. Like, I have races in me still. Right? So at 2 years of like, trying it, like I ran a half marathon, first half marathon I ever ran. I took 6 weeks after my last year of track and trained specifically for 6 weeks and ran a 1:15, right? So, and like the only reason I did the half marathon was because me and another alumni had a bet who could run a faster half, and we were both done track, or like for university anyway. And we're like, okay, we'll bet a beer mile on it. Like you have to do a beer mile if you don't do it, if you run slower. So he ran 1:18 and I ran 1:15. And so it's just stupid competition, right? It was great. But then I trained for track. I got I think I didn't PB. I PB'd in the 1500 spring of my last year. So we did finish classes.
Yeah, because you're kind of reaching like a peak of performance in your last year.
Yeah.
So that must have been.
Yeah. So I PB'd in the 15, but then after that, I couldn't get back to it. I got like a little injured and it didn't work. And I got the job offer for Fort Mac, right? And so I was still disillusioned that I could keep it up in Fort Mac. Yeah. But now I didn't have a coach. I didn't have everything. So I still trained as much as I could.
Yeah.
But then over the time in Fort Mac, you know, you're trying to establish yourself as a teacher and get all this stuff done. And now you don't have a team. Mm-hmm. Like I'm training.
Yeah, like that kind of, obviously it's a lot of intrinsic motivation, but you do have that extrinsic component of like, I'm competing. I have people around me who want to see me succeed.
It was also resources. So we had the Mac Island track. Yeah, that's nothing. That's crap. I'm sorry. That's like a square.
The floor that moves up top.
It's so terrible. And so I got trained on that for a whole year. And then COVID happened. And then I lost motivation. I took like months off running.
Yeah. So what are those months off for you? Like, how do you feel? Because honestly, I think this is funny. I don't know if either of you know this, but like, I think it was not long after, I think it was during so I met you in that 3-month practicum in February, March, and it was that previous September I ran the marathon. I was like, hell yeah, I ran a marathon. I'm feeling good. I meet Conrad in the staff room. We talk about, I'm like, yeah, like, do you run whatever? I'm like, yeah, I ran like 4.5 hours. It's no big deal, you know? Conrad's like, yeah, I ran a half marathon. Like, you're going to Vegas and you just got your hair cut. And you got this wild cut. You're like, I just like to get wild haircuts when I run these things. I was like, oh, like, what are you thinking for your time? You're like, like an hour 15. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I can't even run a 9-minute mile.
Spoiler alert, I did not run a 1:15 in Vegas. I was a bit dehydrated by the time the race started. And then I continued to be dehydrated after it finished. So poor planning. There's no way you can get through Vegas.
It's a Vegas half marathon. It's also hot as whatever there. But.
So like I was like training for it, right? But those were just like goals to keep me going, right? And then I was really craving the track life again, because I was like, I'm still young, I can still do it, and like I'm not naive where the older you get, the less chance you have to do it. Like I know that. So when we knew that Olivia was going back to school, I was like, I have the opportunity to look for another job. I was like, I know the UFC team. Like I know the coach. Like I've met him before. Because like a good thing about being an athlete in Canada West is you have connections in every city. Yeah. So got here, got established. By that point, I was pretty much done really running because I was a little injured. Yeah.
So you were a little injured, just like little things here and there.
Little things here and there, and like I never really had a race to go for. Yeah. I started lifting. Like
I remember those shoulders.
Oh yeah, like the Death Stars. Yeah. So I got big. Like I think I did. I was like 185. Yeah. Like I remember,
which is insane to me because I haven't been less. I saw in grade 12, and this is kind of what I was talking about because you kind of came from like when you started track. Like, what's your weight at?
Well, like when I was in high school.
Yeah, like when you start running track, what do you weigh?
Like $150.
So you're like 150, and I'm like literally 245 in high school. So we're coming from different ends. Yeah. And I'm trying to run at like what? I'm probably like 215 right now, 210. So when it comes to that difference, but anyway, I don't know where I was going with that segue, but I always find that like
admirable because like again, effort is king, right? So when I think of you training for a half, right? Mm-hmm. I think your half marathon takes more guts than my half marathon. You are out there giving high levels of effort because I know you, right?
Trying
so the same efforts I'm giving, but you're doing it for longer, right? Your body doesn't see the numbers. Your body sees the effort. Yeah. So I applaud every athlete who gets off the couch and tries it because it takes work, regardless of what level. Like I coined a saying to my buddies back in university as like, it never gets easier. you just get faster.
Yeah.
Right. Because once it gets easier, you go faster. Right.
Yeah.
So it never gets easier.
I always find running fascinating with like seeing what it does to your body and mind. Like how like the fade, like the ups and downs. You'll be going the same speed for 2 hours. Right. I guess like if you run that long.
Yeah. You get into a rhythm.
Well, you get into a rhythm, then you're like, okay, I'm dying. And then you're like, oh, and then you're feeling good. It literally just ripples back and forth.
You kind of break through walls, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I was like 185 pounds. I drove truck.
Yeah. So it's not the best running.
I was a little heavy, like with muscle, and also I was like gaining a little bit of fat. And this is a good like disclaimer. I wasn't out of shape. Yeah. Like,
well, yeah, because you were running with me.
When runners are out of shape, they're still in pretty good shape.
Yes.
Right? So like it's hard to not sound like posh or something like that.
Well, you've built a foundation that your body is just different.
Relative to me, I was out of shape, right? Yeah. But so when we moved to Calgary, I was like, okay, I'm going to join the club here, University of Calgary Athletics Club. Yeah. That was formerly associated with UFC, but they've like split.
Okay.
Right. But the coaches that I know are UCAC. Like, I joined them. Like, I got into the practice because I was a Bison alumni. So, like, hello, like dinos, like, shake your hands. Can I run with you guys? Yeah. I don't really have a goal. I just like need to get in shape, see what happens. Yeah. And so Steve is one of my coaches, and Doug is another one of my coaches.
You're also like an honorary coach coming in. Like you have a lot of background in this, like compared to your kind of newer runners there. But.
Yeah, like I train with a couple early 20s, right? And I see what they're going through, and I know exactly the way they think and the mistakes they're going to make inevitably. And, you know, you give them a little warning, but kind of got to make them find out for themselves. But yeah, so I'm chugging around this cross country course because I joined mid cross country season, and I am just lugging, like hauling ass. Like I'm just like heavy. Right?
I think you sent me a picture running one.
Yeah, it's like the ground's like shaking, like, you know, like ripples. The photographer took pictures. Yeah, I was like, "Ooh, big boy!"
Every 3-4 months, I'll get a random picture from Conrad of him just mid stride.
But like I knew the recipe, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't have the body I had before, or the fitness.
So what is the recipe?
Like I knew like what intensities I had to train at to hit certain stimulus, right?
Okay.
And I was old enough where I wasn't bogged down by ego. So I was like, 28, turning 29. I realized it's like, okay, well, my pace is not 3:20 a kilometer.
Yeah.
Right. Like it was, but it's not right now. Right. It's more like 3:50, 4 minutes. Right. Which would be laughable for me in university. Like really like ew, like that's what it was. But I was like, no, like just do it. So the first like month of that, I was hanging behind the girls team, just barely hanging on. Right. But I was like, just do it. Consistency. And I showed up every practice, every single practice. I got my ass handed to me. And then indoor came, and finally I was back on a track.
Okay.
Like, it was so nice.
Oh, so you joined the cross country team. So am I wrong? Is there like university cross country?
Yeah, there's university cross country and track.
Okay.
And they're usually the same people, same coaches.
Yeah.
So like think of cross country as just base season for track.
Okay.
So usually in August, September, October, halfway November, all track is on fields. Like it's your training cross country.
Yeah.
And then we got on the track, the Olympic Oval here.
Yeah.
It's like the 450 meter track around the ice skating rink.
Yes. Okay.
The speed skating rink. Yeah. And I loved it. Oh, it was great. I was like, and like, it was funny because during cross country season, the coach, Steve, would be like, your form's perfect. Like, it's great. Like, you're strong. I was like, yeah, I'm just out of shape. Right. So we hustled all indoor season. And we did in December, we did our first time trial race.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 600 meter, and 600 meter is one of the USports events.
Okay.
So in outdoor track, it's the 8 and 15.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the 4 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
In indoor track, it's the 600 and the 1,000.
Oh, okay.
And the 4x8 is a relay.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, my 600 time when I was in university was 121 high, right? And man, I did this time trial. I forgot the pain. It was so bad. I ran 131 and it hurt. I've never felt more pain in my life. Like lactic acid burning sensation. My first, because I break it down into 200s, right?
Okay.
So ideally you'd want to go, if you're going for 125, like 28.
Mm-hmm.
Like I ran a 25 and then burned up to, and I think I went through 25, 54 through 400 and then ran a 131.
Okay.
So think of how slow that last 200 was and all that burn.
Oh, okay.
And that's when I thought, I was like, do I have it? Like, is this what it is?
Like,
right? Like,
is this my life? Am I going to feel like Lucas every time I run?
Like, you really do feel like you're like, if you watch Spider-Man 2.
Not for a long time, no. But
he like loses his powers.
Okay.
Right? And like, he just can't get it. Like, he's like trying to climb a wall and he slips down. Yeah. That's what I felt like. I was like, did I lose my powers? Right? Did Fort Mac ruin me? No shade on Fort Mac.
It ruins a lot of people.
I was just like, did I take too long off? That's what I thought. I was still heavy. Like, it takes a long time to drop weight.
Yeah.
Especially muscle.
Yeah.
For me anyway. But my coach said, this is a diagnostic test. This is a tool. You just went through hell and back. We got the data. Yeah. Like, that's it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, wait, that's what I do. Right. I learn, I figure it out. And
you do kind of like forget that sometimes. Right. Like, oh yeah, this is what I do.
I compete. Like, I'm an athlete. Right. And I was like, okay, this is the time. This is where I'm at. Right. I got to step away from, I'm running a personal best. Mm-hmm. Now I'm trying to get to 128. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what I need to do.
Incremental.
Right? Yeah. Even though that's laughable, right? For like whatever competition I want to be in. So I did that. I trained my ass off all winter, got a little bit of injuries, back and forth with my hips. Mm-hmm. And I ran a race in Edmonton, the Golden Bear Open, which is a race I ran in university, but it's open to open athletes as well. And I ran a 125 600. Right. Wow. I was like, okay, like that's not playing anymore. Yeah. Like, that's like, okay, that's viable. Yeah. Like, we can work off that. So that gave me a little boost. And then I ran a 2-minute flat 800 that weekend as well in a 4x8. Mm-hmm. Like, I was on the University of Calgary Athletic Club 4x8. Yeah. Because they're like, we need a fourth guy.
Like, sure.
Drover, like, this 29-year-old man, like, let's get him on. Like, so, and I'm like still big. Like, I'm 176 pounds or something like that. Like the singlet is like tight on me. like all the insecurities exactly all the insecurities like that, like, you feel like an old man. There's like you're racing against like a 17-year-old right in the next lane, and you're like, oh, like, is this embarrassing or not? But like,
did you feel like it was?
Well, this is the thing with when you have, everyone has intrusive thoughts.
Oh, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think from Mr. G to Scott Radley to Claude Berube to all the mentors, right? Yeah. I knew what I was doing. I knew the recipe of what I wanted to do. Yeah. Like, all I had to do was cook. Like, that's all I had to do. Yeah. And I knew that this isn't the end all, right? Mm-hmm. And so I had confidence with what my process was. Mm-hmm. So, and like in sports, you're trained to shake off negative things, right? You're not focused on what other people are thinking. Mm-hmm. You're focused on the task, right? And I got like I placed decent in those races, but not well. And like, the competition wasn't that crazy, but I kept to it. And then I took a couple weeks off in February because I had like that adductor thing but on the other leg.
Yeah.
And
that damn tendinopathy. It's crazy.
It's funny because it was really hard to diagnose.
Okay.
And the idea is like I went to a bunch of these other physios, chiropractors, and they're like, "Oh, do this muscle strengthening exercises, right? Like something like that would make sense to anyone except me." And then I finally get a referral to this sports medicine clinic.
Yep.
And they work with like speed skaters. They work with like the Calgary Flames and all this stuff. Yep. And my physio, Emily, if I knew her last name, I would totally shout her out right now. Yeah. Is it on my card? She is amazing. Like she got me to run again. I don't have her name, but it's awesome. Emily from Group 23. Best physio ever. She's like, your muscles are strong. Like there's like doing like little leg lifts or whatever. It's nothing compared
especially
to what
when
you do.
You're working with like NHL athletes.
Right. So she's like, your tendon has mileage. That's what she said.
Okay.
Like a car.
Yeah.
She's like, you've just been doing this for long. So it's been breaking down and then healing thicker and thicker and thicker and shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
So the tendon is just thick and short. So we need to elongate it, but also strengthen it. Mm-hmm. So we did a lot of these eccentric drops. Okay. So I'd be on my back, lift my leg up, and my leg would slowly drop to the side, but I'd have a band on it. Yeah. So I'm like fighting it falling. I do that. Okay. So it stretches it out while working it at the same time.
Okay.
And holy crap, it fixed it. And then I did April. All I did was like base training. Mm-hmm. Like I did like 5 by a mile at 5 minute mile pace. Yeah. Like that's 3 minute Ks, right? Like I was just ripping it. Like, and I got such a good base in April. And I was like, okay, I'm going to run outdoor season. Like I'm going to do it. Like, why not?
The dangerous question now. Why not?
So I thought I was fit and I was like, I'm going to run a 1500. Yeah. And like that's scary to me because I was never good at 1500s at all. So for those who don't know, 1500 is almost a mile. It's 3 3/4 of a lap on the track. Mm-hmm. So it's still really fast, but you have to like it's a distance event. Yep. So my best in university and like my all-time best was 3:58.89. Okay. I was like, okay. Like if there's going to be a PB on the track, it's going to be that one because my 800 is just so freaking fast. Yeah. Like it's hard to get there. Yeah. So I ran a 1500 and I ran 4:08 and I died so bad. Like I went out at 4 minute pace and then just slowly died because it was windy. And stuff. Yeah. It's like whatever. Like I learned from that. Like I was really like I let it and then everyone passed me at the end. But that's how she goes. Yeah. But it was a good introduction back to it. Then I ran the 800 the next day because usually you run 2 races a weekend. Okay. And I ran 1:59, and that was a milestone because I was like, I'm back in the sub 2 club. Yeah. Right. Like that was like that took me until grade 12 to achieve. Mm-hmm. Like that I ran 1:59 for the first time at grade 12 provincials. Like that got me the medal, right? So being back at 1:59, I was like, this is great. Yep. And then the 4:08 kind of sucked, but whatever. And then I always think to myself, like, I would have been absolutely shocked to do that a year ago. Yeah. Right. Like,
fair enough. Yeah.
Right. Like I wouldn't be able to break.
Starting with that alumni
in Fort Mac, I wouldn't be able to break 4:30. Like I wouldn't have, right? So, and then 2 weeks after that, or after that 1500, I signed up to run a race in Portland, Oregon. I was like, and I had to, like, you had to like write like your mark, like your seed time. And I faked it. I said 3:58 so I could be in the race with a couple other guys and talk about imposter syndrome. But, so I gave my,
but you're also being uncomfortable. Like you're putting yourself in that position again.
I gave my PB as and I just admitted that I didn't run it in the last 4 years. Yeah. But then, a couple of weeks later, I ran a 1:56 in Calgary. Okay. I was like, okay, like I'm good.
So if you're shaving seconds off that, you're like assuming this.
Yeah. And like, but like, you're still like, I don't know, like, you know, with 1500, it's a different beast and it takes different stuff. But I stopped training for the 800s and I was like, coach, I want to run with the 15 group because they separate. Like the 15s do like 400 repeats all the time, whereas the 800 will do 200s and 300s and stuff. And I thought the 800 stuff was just so hard and my body was so fast. So the 15 stuff, and like, are you sure? Because the 15 guys, one guy ran a 354 the month before, and the other guy's a 357 guy. I was like, just put me in. So I was tailing them all May, just working off them. And then eventually I was like creeping up. And then like the first workout I did with them, I gassed and didn't finish it. I was like, can't do it. Then afterwards, my coach was like, holy crap, like you can do this. And so like I just kept doing it.
But again, some positive reinforcement still from like your teacher, I guess. But
so he's like, my goal is like, so the boys were like, you have to do this 458 seconds, 60-second rest, 58 again, 60-second rest, 58 again, 5-minute rest. Do that 3 times. That's so hard. Like I was doing 63s, 64s, but I was still doing it, right? I knew the recipe. I just had to cook. So I was cooking. And Portland came. I meet my buddy from Winnipeg who flies down, right? Because that's the whole reason we just wanted to run it, right? And he's a 353 guy. And so
I love there's labels for those. Like there's a 353 guy.
You are identified by your time, whether that's healthy or not, or whatever. So I'm lining up in Portland, and I have to go to the bathroom so bad. I have to poop so bad, and I'm like I'm burping, and I'm like, they're like, okay, well, the slowest seat time in here is like 3:58. I'm like, oh, they're talking about me, and like that's a fake seat time. Like I actually am 10 seconds slower than that, like, you know, and they don't even know. But coach was like, just race,
just cook.
So I just like, I'm gonna race. Like I don't care about the time. I'm gonna go with someone and beat them, right? So this is where that experience was. I knew when to surge. I knew like, okay, this guy's slowing down. I can't stay behind him. I can afford to expend the energy to get around him. Like I knew things like that. And what coach said when he watched this race, he's like, I knew you were racing. Like you were experienced. Like, I ran a 3:58.00. So I got my first personal best since 2017 on the track.
But again, you're almost getting out of your own head.
Right. Well, like I knew I was fit then. And I'm like, it wasn't even that I was fit. It's like I PB'd. I'm fitter than I ever was. Right. And then
this is recently, right? Like
this was in June.
Yeah.
Right. And then training would happen again. And I was right with the boys now. Right. I'm training with them.
Like you're at 3:58 now. That's your name.
Then there's these 2 meets, Harry Jerome Classic in Langley. And then Victoria Track Classic on the island. And we, like our club, me and my friend Max and a couple other people signed up for it. And because those are the events to go to, right? Especially leading up to world champs. Like that's the circuit. And so I signed up. Langley, I ran with all my Manitoba friends because they're all there too. And like, unlike when I was alumni, they're all alumni now, right?
For so like kind of in the same boat now.
The last 3 years. But since like the coach's son is alumni, so the culture around alumni running is changed. Like everyone supports them now, and they're, which I'm kind of salty about, but whatever, right? So they're my team, and I was like, so I got to line up with my best friend. So Matthew Van Shepdale, he is my best friend. I am number 13. He's number 14, and we're lining up at the track, and like there's a picture of us just side by side. We lined up in 2014 together for the first time.
That's cool.
Like we're still at this, man.
Literally a decade later. Pretty much.
He PB'd in that race, and I PB'd in that race. He ran 3:51, and I ran 3:55.
What?
Yeah. And like, it was awesome. We were both like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like we did, like, we were both old men.
Yeah.
Like, at this
But
point,
not.
right.
Like,
And we are faster than we ever were in university, ever. Right. And then we have one day to travel.
mm-hmm.
And then it's funny because I'm like staying with the Calgary guys in like this, like track like it's like a like university housing.
Yeah.
Right. The next door neighbor to us is Claude and all the Manitoba boys. They're like, what's up? You know? So I got to like shoot this. Can I swear? No.
Yeah.
I got to shoot the shit with Claude and the boys, just like old times. And then the next day,
mixing your worlds together.
Yeah, it was cool. And I got to show them Max and stuff like that. And we raced in Victoria. Her sister lives in Victoria. Like Olivia's sister works in Victoria. So she came out to watch my race, right? And like it was cool. Like she's a cool person.
Good save.
Great. And then so I line up. I'm with her buddy from Manitoba, not the guy, because he got into the elite section.
Yeah.
So I'm just in the developmental section as a 29-year-old man. Mm-hmm. Either way. And then like it's such a race again. Like there's like 14 people in the field. And I think I came in third. Yeah. And I ran 3:54.0. I PB'd again in the same weekend.
Wow.
Yeah. And
so what does that kind of feel like for you? Because I almost feel
whatever drug addicts feel, like that's what it feels like. It's a dopamine rush, like because you have accumulated hundreds of hours, hundreds of miles. Yeah. So I was running like 50-mile weeks. Yeah. 60-mile weeks earlier for months on end, training to the point where you want to puke. Yeah. Right. 3 times a week. Embarrassing the body. Yeah. That's literally what it is. And it worked. Like it was so good.
Well, and you actually see and track, especially like there is like the time is the time. Like there is no getting like you can't like fake a lift or move. Like it's just you run it or you don't.
Exactly. And I keep thinking it's like 10 months before that. Where was I?
Which is crazy. That's like, even though like I know your body can recover or like not recover, but kind of get back to what it used to be. Like you have a bit of like memory there.
But like objectively,
that's a pretty insane 10-month.
That was the best season. Like when you can think of it as like relative, like progression.
Were you like the healthiest too? You think you?
I was the healthiest, and I had the most PBs of any season I've ever had in track. It was my best season on paper ever. Right.
So how long do you think you're going to see yourself doing this for now? Like at this level, what is the kind of the lifespan? I guess because you've told me that like half marathon and marathons, you kind of get your best years in your 30s and 40s. Right. Yeah. So that's what you think you'll kind of go to eventually?
Yeah. You know, I'm renewing my lease with track every year. Right. Okay. So, it just gave me enough stupid luck or hope this year that I like keep in mind, like I just wanted to get back in a decent shape initially. Right. I didn't know I would ever PB, like, cause there was a time where I came to myself that I was like, my PBs are my lifetime best. Yeah. Right. So breaking 4 minutes again was a goal. Yeah. Now I could get 3:49. Which would be, even when I was in university, I thought that was impossible. Right. So that's the goal this year. Okay. Right? And I'm going to do this until my priorities change. Right. Like, it's like, until it's not fun anymore.
Yeah. And so this is all during your Crocsford year.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so obviously this is, because I asked you kind of before about how do you, because we talked about balance a little bit and how pretty much like balance is a bit of a myth. If you actually,
I'm sorry, the conversation totally didn't balance because I talked about track for like 30 minutes.
Oh, I'm so mad. No, I love those. Great. I'm just trying to think, like you said, that was probably one of your most burnt out years. Like does track play a part? Does track kind of save you from not being more burnt out? Like what is that kind of relationship there? And how do you kind of make all that time for that?
It saved me for sure.
Okay.
My sanity.
Mm-hmm.
Because like being an athlete, you think about like your physical health, and like I'm no stranger to like mental health, right?
Yeah.
Like there's times where it just sucks,
Yeah.
right? So I think track did help, but it made things volatile as well.
So what do you mean by that?
For example, like track is my outing to get like my steam off, to get a feel of accomplishment where I'm not getting at work, right? A sense of progress somewhere. But if something happens to that, then it's game over for a while, right?
Mm-hmm. So
like just this last month, right, I got injured, right? The psyche hits hard, right? Because like you're mentally reliant on that sport a lot of the times.
Okay.
So it's
when you lose that.
I think it really helped me get through it. And I think I would be in a much worse place mentally and physically if I didn't pursue track.
Yeah.
But it comes at a cost, right? Because when you're dealing with performance, right? Peak performance, you get to that peak and you have to get to that peak as much as you can without falling off the other side.
Yeah.
Right. So you're always volatile to injury and, you know, being reintroduced into the sport and being older, right? I'm still learning where my body needs to stop and the demands of the job. Like, because track has to take into consideration the life around it too, right? So you have to balance, like, even though you're not physically working hard at work, right? You're mentally drained and stuff. You're tired, which you got to, and I think it's comes with experience. You got to regulate yourself on the track. Yeah. Because if you work too hard, you get injured. So it was, I think it caused a lot of stress in terms of like just getting the practice and, you know, dealing with like parent teacher interviews and stuff like that. But I will take that stress any day to get the result of what it gives me, right? So the fruit was worth the labor.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I have two more questions for you, Conrad. So you have a mic right now, but if you were given the opportunity where the whole world could listen to you for 1 minute and you could change whatever you wanted about education and it would go through, what would you do? And what would you say and why?
Oh, man. And you talk to me at any given day, I have an answer for this. So the question was, if I could change something about education.
Yeah, like if you had the mic, everyone's listening, you're on the, like, take the mic. What do you say?
Would this be like everyone would listen to what I'm saying?
Everyone listens, and it has changed. It
has changed?
Yeah.
I would say that
no, it is a hard question because I guess everyone kind of goes into like, oh, I want to go in education, I want to like help change the system, but I always like, well, what do you mean by that, and like, what would you do? That's kind of always what I'm wondering.
Right. Yeah. So, if I was to change one thing about education, it would be increasing the minimal expectations of how many adults are in the classroom. So, if we had 2 teachers for a set of 30, or even 1 mandatory EA, right? And we had 25 kids instead. But like, it was like mandatory that you had an EA in your classroom. That would help so much because you have the ability to branch off and help in small groups and as well as supervise as a whole. Because even having a student teacher this year, like, it changes things having 2 people in the room, right? You can solve one quadrant, right? And the other person can help out. And that prevents so much, like, you know, being off task and everything like that. And it allows everyone to be a little less stressed so they can give their best to their students. So changing the student to adult ratio. And it doesn't have to be another teacher. but an educational assistant, right? Imagine if you had 3 adults teaching 30 grade 8s, right? You could do so much, right? And if you're tired that day or feeling low, right,
you gotta play off each other
to back you up, right? Because no one's going to be 100% all the time, right? So having redundancy with your workforce, like would be amazing. And of course, everyone should be paid the same, right? Like you're not dividing the pay.
Yeah.
But so yeah, changing the ratio that we work with students with, right? So instead of like a 1 to 10, it should be a 1 to 10 rather than a 1 to 30.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I would change. And it just gives you more opportunity to have those one-on-one relationships with people. And yeah, if I'm having to change one thing that I can't control, like never will be able to, is like I would really want like a little more parent involvement in like the most positive sense. And that's what I feel like I got at my new school, right? I feel like I'm an ally with all the parents, a community, right? So I know the parents are working with me, right? Yeah. I know that if I say, hey, they really need help with their homework, right? It's not like, oh, that's not my job. That's the teacher's job. It's like, no,
it's our job.
We'll do what we can to help them at home, and you'll help them at school, right? So if I really want all parents to value education, and that would go a long way.
So this is a side question because I've asked a few people this. Do you think coaches should be paid for extracurriculars?
Ooh, that's a big one, eh? Because like I don't know how it works in the States, but I think
I think even BC. That's what I've heard. I don't know like, the data on this, but well, because I just think because I had this conversation with someone else, but I even think about it's obvious that as the successor to you, a cross country coach at McTavish. Well, no, it's obviously very different skill sets. Like you have much more experience, you're much more well rounded in that. But in terms of like now, I guess I kind of take the reins for whatever that means. But obviously, having you in that position is worth so much more to the students. Yeah. Not that I'm like giving nothing. Right. Like I'm still doing what I can, but doing what I can versus doing what you can is very different. So like, is that an incentive that should be encouraged? You know what I mean?
Well, I think if you're going to I think it would switch into something like an overtime. And like just as soon as you do that, you know that your expectations are skyrocketed, right? Yeah. So like a lot of times coaches are just helping out when they can, right?
So differentiating between coaches would be hard.
So I think that in general, there should be for teachers an overtime clause. There should be a way to get overtime. And I'm not saying for marking or anything like that, but I'm saying for extracurriculars or holding community events, right? Because I feel like a lot of the expectations that we're looking at outside of school, we'd have way more teacher involvement if we had an overtime system, right? The way you can implement it, would it be abused or whatever? Like that's someone else's job to figure out, right? But I think overall, just implementing an overtime system for teachers to help them out with that stuff, right? I think that would be a good step, and you would see like the quality increase, right? So I think anything extracurricular would benefit from an honorarium.
Yeah, well, because like it's not just that the individual would receive some benefit; it's like the actual extracurricular would receive benefit,
like funding for that sport.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But that just goes to money, and we all know.
Yeah, I know
where the money is, right?
Thing. All right. So I have one last question for you. Okay. So if you've listened to any so far, I always end off with the same question. No pressure. It's education remains once we forget everything that we've learned in school. What is it that you want your students to take away from their time with you that's not curriculum related? Like just you as a person versus me as a person as their teacher. What is it that you want to try to instill? We kind of touched on it a little bit, I think, so far, but how would you kind of sum it up?
So what I would want students to walk away with is the confidence and ability and the passion to learn and do something with that knowledge that better helps society. So I want them to have the skills to learn what they're passionate about and be able to give back in their own unique way, right? They're not going to be perfect at everything, but they might have something that they can give to something, right? My goal as a human being personally is to make a net positive impact of the world, right? And I know that there's some times where I do a negative impact, right? But
you're aware of that. You're self-aware.
That by the end, on my deathbed, if you tally it up, I did more good than harm, right? And I want kids to have an idea of how they're going to do that, the tools to learn how to do it when they want to, when the time is right for them, and the desire to do it. So that would, if that answers your question.
No, it absolutely does. Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Drover.
Thanks. It was awesome.
Appreciate it.
Right. Talk later.
Hey everyone, thank you all for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. Just wanted to say again, if there are any issues with professional conduct and or you would like to share your own story, experience, or have something you would like to contribute to the show, please do not hesitate to reach out at lucasrdclark97@gmail.com or send a direct message on Instagram to @MrClarkAfterDark. Hope you all enjoyed, potentially found something of use, and of course, please do not forget to subscribe. See you guys all next time. Unless you're scared.